शुभ संध्या सम्मान्य अतिथिगण श्रोतावृंद एवं बंधुगण. There is a small clarification. I am asked if I am from Chennai. My name is Gitanjali. So I would like to say that I am born a Punjabi. I am married to a Bengali. But at heart, I consider myself to be an Oriya. Because it is Orissa that has sustained me spiritually and materially. I am born in Orissa, in Balasore, educated in Orissa at XIM Bhubaneswar. And the most important thing is I was put in touch with Mother and Aurobindo in Orissa. And finally, I got the opportunity to fight for Mother and Aurobindo only in Orissa. I have been a speaker and a debater in school and college. And I used to enjoy participating in debates. Then one day, suddenly, in Aurobindo's Thoughts and Aphorisms, I read, "O eager disputant, when thou hast participated in a debate, thou art greatly to be pitied, for thou hast lost the chance of widening knowledge." It came like a thunderbolt of Indra from the heavens, and after that I stopped participating in debates because I didn't want to lose out on understanding the other perspective. And therefore I restricted myself to just giving talks and speeches. And then suddenly I came to know that when some VIPs were visiting the ashram, somebody asked the mother, what should we tell them? Mother said, do not say, just be. And in another place she has said, no words, only acts. And finally, while reading the Savitri, I came upon this line that God shall grow up while wise men talk in sleep. So I would like to quickly disassociate myself from being the talker who is very wise, and I would quickly like to introduce myself as the child of Mother and Aurobindo, who today is trying to just share with you the little pebbles that she has collected while playing on the infinite shores. It's because it's only a child who can dare to dream that beyond Homo sapiens there can be a new species. And let us not underestimate children, because in our mythology, the two immortal beings apart from Satyavan are Markandeya and Nachiketa, and both of them were children. Only they could dare to go and have the courage to fight Yama. He can concentrate on one aspect of his life and limit himself while keeping the other in the background. Similarly, Brahman progressively descended from the Samam Brahman stage of Sat, which is the pure existence, through the play of consciousness force, which is Chit, and delight, Ananda, through the creative medium of supermind, through various levels like the overmental gnosis or the swirl world, which is called in the Vedas, the illumined mind, the intuitive mind, the higher mind and mind, finally into life and culminating into matter. He withdrew his power of knowledge from that of power, divided himself and reached a limiting form of matter. Once matter was formed, everything was suddenly dark. There was no consciousness, and it was unstable. And the divine, the supreme, had to do something, and therefore he had to enter it. So the first descent from Sat to matter is called the first creation. And the second creation happened when Aditi, the Supreme Mother, delegated out of herself the force of love, which was greater than the disorder and the chaos that had been caused when matter was formed. And this love of the Mother Aditi could, by its power of union, bring back the world which was split into atoms. And this is called the psychic spark. This psychic spark is also called in the Vedas the Agni. It is the first avatar which descended into matter, the immortal among mortals. It is because of this presence that everything is evolving and seeking the Brahman. It is this transcendence which is in the manifested world. Once the spark of the divine, the psychic spark, entered matter, evolution began. It went back onto the same ladder. From matter, it became life again, the plants, and then to the mind. At which point, the the animals, and then the mind. So far, till the human beings appeared, this evolution was unconscious and slow. What you have in the called in Savitri, the tardy process of mortality. It was very slow. But now, at the nodus of body, life and mind, with the arrival of man, this psychic spark has the potential to become the psychic being. And therefore, this evolution can now be made conscious, and we can hasten the plan of the divine, which is to take it next to the creative medium of supermind, because only it is in this creative level of the supermind that knowledge, will and action are one. All the suffering, the decay, the death that we see around, all the partial knowledge and the problems that we see around us is because in us the will, action and knowledge have separated. This will, action and knowledge are one in the supermind. If you see the position of supermind from Sat, Chit, Ananda, supermind, mind, life, matter. It is fourth on both sides. From the top it is Sat, Chit, Ananda and supermind. From below it is mind, life, body and supermind. So it is this central position which allows the supermind to be the creative medium who, on one hand, can hold the unity of Satchidananda, and on the other side can maintain the multiplicity of the creation. And when evolution began, it began on two levels. One was the evolution of the spirit, the other was the evolution of form, or the evolution of the substance. For instance, this is matter. But when the plants appeared, matter changed. If you take a branch of a tree or a twig, that substance, that matter is different from this matter. Similarly, when the animals appeared, the substance changed. The same matter, it could move, it could grow more than what the plants could do. And when man appeared, he could have different perspectives. And he had to stand straight because an animal has only one-sided view of things. Therefore, he is on his force. He can only see what is going on below or in front. He has only one vision. But man can see from many points of view. So he needs to have a physical frame that can support it. So he had to become erect. he can move his head on all sides so that he can see. So the consciousness needs the appropriate form or matter to express itself. And since the next step is the supramental consciousness, we need a form which can hold the supramental force, and that would be the supramental being on earth. Now, how do we get there? We will discuss later what are the characteristics of the supramental being, but the important thing is, where is the bridge? Here today we are with this body, which is mutable and perishable in this mutable and perishable world, and we are talking about an illumined body which will be immortal. How do the two meet? Sri Aurobindo in Life Divine says, create their very opposite because they provide the maximum resistance. For instance, out of inertia or matter came life force. Life appeared out of seemingly opposite to life was the ideal condition for life to appear, because only it is in the opposite that the maximum spur comes for the aim to be realized. So the material which is given to us, this divided mentality which does not have a direct perception of truth, this groping life force which does not align itself to the divine will, this physical which is prone to death and decay, even if it sounds very depressing, but it is the best raw material that we have for the final goal of the supramental species. And Sri Aurobindo in detail has said how we can get there from here. And he calls it the triple process of transformation, which I would be touching upon in brief. Now there are two important terms which we have as human beings. One is the psychic being, which is the transcendent spark of the Aditi, of the Supreme Self, which has come into matter and which has taken a shape in us. And the second is the supramental force, which Sri Aurobindo has brought down for us and has manifested it in the subtle physical. So we are at what Mother calls at the hour of God. We are at the right moment in the spiritual history of the world where this next species should happen. But it is a long path, a difficult path, and we have to consecrate our entire life to it. The first process of transformation, which Sri Aurobindo says, is psychicization. What is psychicization? It is replacing the individual will with the divine will. The individual will, which represents the lower nature of mind, life and body, has to come under the full influence of the psychic being. This is what the first line of Rig Veda starts with. Om Agnivire Purohitam Yajnasya Devametvijam Otaram Ratnadhatamam. The seer, the Rishi says that I adore you, O Agni. Purohitam, who is in the front, who is the leader of our path. Yajnasya, you are the Lord of the sacrifice. What is this Agni? As I said before, this Agni is the psychic spark in us which has to grow. And what do we do it in our daily lives for its growth? The psychic being is completely the contrast of what is ego. Ego is timelessness. Ego is death. Psychic being is immortality. So the two cannot coexist. One has to be replaced, and we have to replace the ego with the psychic being. There are some ways in which we can a need for approval. Whenever there is a need for approval, we can be sure that there is we do not yet have the full glare of the psychic being. Because the need for approval keeps us imprisoned in the ego. Ego is not the self, it is the self-image. When somebody stops you in the middle of the road and asks, "Who are you?" instead of saying that I am a holographic focal point where the universe is expressing itself through a series of space-time events, which is the truth, we try to give our identification through the objects of experience. That I am so-and-so's father or daughter, or I hold such and such position, or I have this car or this bank balance. So this is the self-image. When we relinquish the self for the self-image, we start to manufacture time, and we cannot be in the timeless, which is the psychic being. So we have to get rid of all these labels and descriptions, and at every moment remember who we are. The second thing which we should know when we are not psychicized is that we have the need to control others and make things happen the way we want it to be. The third, when we do not at all moments remember and offer. Because remembering and offering keeps us completely in touch with the divine, which is the force and everything that acts in the universe. We should have our whole life supremely concentrated in the present, not in the past, not in the future. We should become the moment. We should become the work that we are doing. The mother says that when you're even doing a very mundane job of pouring water into a bottle, you should become the bottle, you should become the water. Because it is not the work that tires us, but the remorse of the past and the anxiety of the future. And this keeps us away from the psychic being. When we are fully in the present doing work, it is meditation in action. There is a Vedic saying that have your attention on what is and see its fullness in every moment. The presence of God is everywhere. We must consciously embrace it with our attention. This is the spiritual dimension of work. In the synthesis, Aurobindo says that every moment and every movement has to be consecrated to the divine. Whether we are eating or singing or dancing, we should get out of our ego and concentrate on the divine and offer to Him the action. When we do this, we slowly get into more and more a mode of silence, and it is in silence that divine dwells and the psychic being comes out in its fullness. So the first process of transformation is psychicization, which means raising our life, mind and body into the light of the psychic and being completely influenced by it. The result of psychicization is equality. There is absolute equality, and we go into the depths of our being. The second process of transformation is what Aurobindo calls spiritualization or universalization. Psychic being brings us depth, and spiritualization brings us height and wideness. Psychic being brings us equality, and spiritualization brings us impersonality. And these are the two signs of the Supramental being. when somebody asks the mother, Mother, how can we know that somebody is supramentalized? She said, he will have two qualities. One is absolute equality, remaining the same in all circumstances. And second, she said, is absolute knowledge, which is that wide impersonality. Now there are steps for this spiritualization. The first, and this is psychic being takes us from the outer nature into the depths of our being, and universalization or spiritualization takes us from the high mind into the supermind. The first thing we need to do to develop our mind is to relinquish the need for judgment. The need to judge, to constantly label, describe, analyze, define, evaluate is very, very tiring. And it keeps our mind very petty and small, and such a mind can never be the base for the supramental force. When we give up the burden of judgment, we feel very light. A mystic poet once remarked that the sinner and the saint are merely exchanging notes. The saint was once the sinner, and the sinner shall one day be sanctified. So let it be. Let it be. Mother has said many times the three things you must never do: do not judge, do not criticize, do not compare. And she had said this because when we constantly do these things, the mind develops a quality which is anti-supramental. In any case, till we have the direct vision of and the experience of supermind, we cannot have the complete knowledge of things. We can only arrive at approximations. So it is better to hold our horses and keep our judgments. The second thing we need to do for universalization or spiritualization is to replace fear-motivated behavior by love-motivated behavior. Ego lives in fear, constantly anticipating responses, but the soul lives in love. Love is normally mistaken for an emotion or a sentiment. In reality, it is the ultimate truth of things. It is the ultimate truth of all creation. Love is the experience of the unity consciousness. It is the recognition that you and I are not only made of the same stuff, but we are actually the same being, expressing itself in different forms and phenomena. There are three stages in this. The first is seeing the divine in all. When we look at a butterfly or a stone or a person or a kite or the star or a beautiful nature or a slum, we have to first tell ourselves that in everything there is the self, there is Brahman. This is the first thing, and it slowly becomes an experience. The second affirmation is all is in the self. Everything that we see is in Brahman, because in the beginning he was alone, and it's he who has become everything, so everything exists in him. And the final realization is all as Brahman. So these are three steps of realization for the cosmic consciousness, for universalization. The Brahman in all in Brahman, and all as Brahman. This is very beautifully explained in the Isha Upanishad. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati sarva bhuteshu chakmanam tato na vijugupsate. Yasmin sarvani bhutani आत्मेवाभूत विजानतः तत्र को मोह कः शोकः एकत्वम् अनुपश्यतः. One who sees all in the Brahman and Brahman in all, and one who sees oneness everywhere. The divine does not hide himself from him. These are some of the signs of spiritualization. And finally, in spiritualization, one begins to see the universe as a projection of the self. We look within for problems without. When we see, Mother has said that anything you like in the other person or you dislike is in you. So we can use the other relationships as a mirror for our own evolution. And this way we become charitable to the mistakes of others. And through this, we become self-nourishing and nourishing for others. These two steps of psychicization and spiritualization finally open the path to supramentalization. Psychicization and spiritualization is what we term as the ascent. And having reached the supermind, to bring it down, to transform mind, life and body is the descent. I would like to, you all know the story of Savitri. Mother has said that Savitri is the supreme revelation of Aurobindo vision. Aurobindo himself has called it a legend and a symbol. What is the symbol in the four boons, if we see? It is nothing but this evolution, this ascent and descent. The four boons which Savitri asks of Yama are the following. The first, she says, is the return of kingdom and eyesight to Gitanjali. This, the kingdom, as it has been mentioned in several places, the kingdom of God on earth, is nothing but the psychic being, and eyesight is symbolic of knowledge. So the boon of Gitanjali is for humanity symbolic of psychicization and ascent of mind to the higher realms so that it can acquire knowledge. The second boon that Savitri asks is for 100 sons for Ashwapati. Ashwapati, the Lord of power, and he had become powerless because he did not have progeny. So the 100 sons for Ashwapati is symbolic, is the removal of suffering of Ashwapati and is symbolic of life getting back its consciousness power. If you see the scheme which Aurobindo has put forward, is so beautiful. He says that it is the higher quaternary of Sat, Chit, Ananda, and Supermind is reflected in the lower quaternary of body, life, mind, and the psychic being. So Sat, which is infinite existence, it became its opposite, which is matter. Chit, which is consciousness force, became life, which dies. Supermind, which is all knowledge, is now here represented as mind, which is an instrument groping for knowledge. And the Ananda is represented in the lower quaternary by the psychic being. And the evolution is nothing but these lower quaternary of mind, life, body, and the psychic being realizing the quaternary. And this is what we see in the symbolism of Savitri. The third boon that Savitri asks is 100 sons of Satyavan and her. So the Divine Mother, which is Savitri, and the soul in man, they are having 100 sons is symbolic of the supramental manifestation on earth. Before the supramental being can come, there has to be a supramental manifestation, which is what Aurobindo has come and done for us. Aurobindo the Mother. They have brought down the supramental into the subtle physical for all, and the Mother in her own body. And finally, the life of Satyavan is symbolic of the divine man on earth, of the Superman, the supramental being on earth. So Aurobindo Savitri is symbolically the same story, beautifully rendered as his vision. They say that, it is said that Savitri is the poetic form of the life divine, where Aurobindo has explained the meaning of creation. Now, many sadhus in the ashram used to ask the Mother, how will this supramental being be? How will this body be? The Mother has said that no matter what I say, you will not be able to understand. It is like trying to tell a monkey that, do you see that moon up there? Someday a being will come called man who can go to that moon. And that monkey would not believe. But I think we were some of those monkeys that believed that we can go to the moon, and therefore we became men. And I think we are again here assembled because we believe that supramental being is possible. That is the first thing, to believe in it. Mother says that this atavism of the subconscious is so hard to resist that all of us believe that we are going to die one day. But she says that death is a bad habit. It is not something which everybody has to go through. We can stop it. And this is what Yama in Kathopanishad, after giving Nachiketa, even Nachiketa's story, for instance, is symbolic. The first boon that Nachiketa asks Yama is that, I want to go back to my father. Now this is not a sentimental child of kill us. In fact, the Vedic vision of Yama is very different. Yama has a twin sister who is Yami. And they have two different functions. Of Yami is to take care of our body when we are alive, and the work of Yama is to take care of our soul after we die. So he is actually not somebody who comes to kill us, but he is somebody who takes care of our soul when it is in transition between one body and another. And he is waiting that all of us should go to him seeking this knowledge, and then he will reveal that knowledge to us. Now, what will be the supramental being like? Mother has said that it is very difficult to give a precise description, but general points can be put forward. Number one, that the supramental body will have the property of lightness. It will be very light, weightlessness. It will appear like one is walking on air. That is because there will be in it no tamas or inertia or unconscious. These are things which weigh us down. Even metaphysically we say, my heart is heavy with sadness. It is because when we are sad, we produce these chemicals which pull us down. And the supramental being will be free. It will have no unconscious, no sadness, and therefore it will be light, even physically. The second quality, the property, would be adaptability. It can adapt itself to any condition where it is placed. For instance, if it is in the North Pole, a supramental being will say, wow, I am feeling very cozy and warm. And if it is at the equator with the sun scorching at 45 degrees, it can start an inner air conditioner and feel cold. This is because we feel hot or cold or any other problem with health and so on when we resist change. So, in the supramental being, there will be no incapacity. there will not be any resistance to change, and so it can adapt itself to any condition. The third property will be plasticity. It will be immune to disease, death, decay, or even injury. A bullet can pass through it. First of all, no bullet would dare to come close to it because it will have aura around it. But in case it passes also, it would just pierce and go without damaging it in any way. Because the body would be absolutely yielding, it would be absolutely plastic. And the final property which the mother says the body will have is it would have luminosity. Each cell will radiate with the supramental glory. The physical substance, this physical substance will be converted into the stuff of living light. And this will be visible to everyone. It will be evident fact to one and all. Mother says that even the most skeptical can see it. Now such a body cannot happen when it has these gross parts like the bones, arteries and so on, or when it lives on food and water, or other things that human beings do. So it will have a very different structure and a very different substance. It is said that 3/4 of the organs that we use now will not be required for the supramental being. 3/4 of our organs are associated with food, assimilation, and providing energy to our body. The digestive system, in which the food is taken, will not be required in the supramental body because it can live on the universal energy. Instead of organs, physical organs, it would have the chakras of light and energy. There won't be any need for the circulatory system because the circulatory system inwardly through the blood takes that nutrients that we have to the rest of the body. It will not have an excretory system because there's no intake of food and so on. So 3/4 of our organs is like we had a tail once and it has now disappeared and it leaves a vestige of an appendix. Similarly, all these organs will disappear. So can you imagine the amount of time and energy we spend on food? I think 80% of our lives are spent in earning the money for the food, for preparing it, for eating. That is why Mother made the dining room in the ashram, so that people have time to do other things. And Sri Aurobindo says that a lot of people, when they read this, they stop eating food because they want to be supramentalized the next day. But Sri Aurobindo says that this has to come in the end. Initially, one has to be careful about how one is eating. There is a separate topic on it altogether. I don't think we can go into it now. The other thing which the supramental body will not have is the sexual function. It will neither be a male nor a female. It will be a sexless body. Because right now, we need for the race to continue this function. It's because this body and life and mind cannot keep pace with the inner being, our psychic being. The psychic being grows, but the body does not. So after a point, this outer sheath has to be replaced by another. And that is why this function is important. But the supramental body can keep pace with the soul's evolution. It does not have to be discarded. But does that mean that supramental beings can live forever? It's not so, because he is not even bound to immortality. Supramental being is free. He is not even bound to immortality. So he can form. He is again a wrong word because it's neither a he nor a she, but for the sake of English. It can dissolve at will and reform itself at will. So these are some of the aspects of the supramental being. And this is a golden opportunity that has been presented before us. It takes a lot of punya, they say, to come close to the light. And here, the Mother and Aurobindo have brought us so close to them. They have given us this knowledge. They have laid bare in front of us their entire divine plan. They have done everything for us. They have even brought down the supramental force for us. They have done 99% of the work. We have to only do that 1%. We have to be true to them. And having known this, we have to consecrate our entire life for this work and for this plan, so that we can become truly their children, which in the Mother book, the Mother, Aurobindo says, the definition of a child of the Mother is one who is eternally one with her. She is in you and you are in her, and there is no difference. So I think this is the task, the great task in front of us. And as the Tao's immortals used to have this alchemy, they had this inner alchemy and outer alchemy. Alchemy is the process of turning everything into gold, the baser elements into gold. So Aurobindo and the Mother are that force through which this alchemy we can dare to attempt, and with their love, grace and blessings, hope to realize one day. Thank you very much.